Marketer of the Day, number 405. Evergreen Focus and Motivation. 12 Mind Hacks to become a better author, speaker, coach, entrepreneur, and your best self. Hey there, welcome back. It's your good friend Robert Plank. We're talking today about how you can get evergreen focus and motivation, how to cut out the noise, cut out multitasking, be your best self, and get the most out of every day. So I have 12 things I'm going to list off to you in no particular order. And I'm not saying I have all of life's mysteries and nooks and crannies and ins and outs and ups and downs figured out. Nothing like that. But at least for me personally, it's a constant process of always staying excited, engaged, energized, all those fun things. And many times it's simply a matter of figuring out where you're at, what problem, what rut you've fallen into, and then you know how to dig yourself out. And I think that a lot of people out there, they don't even know what current problem they're trying to solve. They might say, I'd love to get focused, I'd love to get energy, I'd love to stop multitasking, and yet their actions show that everything that they're doing is multitasking. And if things have gotten to the point for you, I don't know what year you're listening this into, or if you're an entrepreneur or just a regular person looking to get the focus, the motivation, the drive back, it comes down, at least for me, to 12 things, 12 different problems that at least I find myself falling into. And if you find that, well, your problem is like you're just not excited, maybe you need to change something in your environment. Or if your problem is maybe you're too scatterbrained, too multitasked, spread too thin, half the battle is just knowing where you're at and knowing what needs to be fixed. And you might have heard of all these different so-called good habits that you should have, right? You might have heard that you need to take time away from the computer, especially if you're sitting there and things aren't working. You might have heard that you need to wake up early, exercise, drink water, all these fun things. And maybe if some of those, the memories of those habits or some of the actions you're taking, if some of those things are lacking, then perhaps you sometimes backslide into bad habits. So half the battle is just knowing, oh yeah, I remember hearing about I should wake up early, or I should delegate some stuff. So you might hear things that you might have heard in the past, but those are important, especially if when I list these things to you, if one particular item out of the 12 really speaks for you, well, then I imagine that it might just be a situation is that you know these things, you've heard these things, you've implemented them in the past, but then it's easy for things to become a little too familiar and to hear that, oh yeah, you should have like an affirmation, or you should listen to hypnosis or things like that. You might have heard that 100 different times, and you've just heard it so much that you're just like, oh yeah, I've heard that, I'm just going to ignore it. Except for if you ignore it, but you don't implement it, then what's the point? So let's just jump right in and talk about 12 mind hacks to become a better author, speaker, coach, entrepreneur, and your best self. The first thing is to quiet the noise. Don't check email first thing in the morning. Don't text first thing in the morning. And we all fall into this habit, right? Of you're about to fall asleep, you have the phone on the nightstand, you reach over, you check the phone. Next thing you know, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. And you wake up early in the day. Maybe you wake up at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, and if the first thing you do is you reach over on that nightstand and you grab that phone and you check it, then I would be very, very cautious, because again, I'm not the best at following this advice, but I've noticed that if I check my phone first thing in the morning for 3, 4, 5 days in a row, here's what begins happening. I wake up instantly, default mode, right out of the gate, already nervous, already anxious, already a ball of stress. So at least with me, I have to tell myself, you know what, I'll put my phone away, I'll put it in the other room, I'll tuck it away in the nightstand and close the drawer and let it charge overnight. But if you find yourself checking your phone first thing in the morning, and you notice that you begin waking up over and over as sort of a ball of stress, then I would dial back the checking email or the texting. And I would definitely recommend that you take a couple of days off from the phone. What's the worst that's going to happen? If you don't check Facebook, if you don't text, if you have things that need to be doing at the computer, but do you really need to have your phone on you at all times? Every time you take a walk, every time you use the computer, I'm not sure. And it's one thing to check your phone notifications and Facebook, and it's one thing to text, but then when you then begin checking email in the morning, it kills all of your momentum. So my recommendation is to set some sort of a time during the day when you definitely don't check email before that time. And maybe for you, maybe it's as late in the day as 10 or 11 in the morning. But what if you woke up at 4 or 5 a.m. and you knocked out just a couple of solid hours, say like maybe 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. of just writing 2,000 words of your book? Or of, if you're a computer programmer like me, knocking out some bugs or answering some help desk tickets. Or if you're a video creator or a course creator, what if you dedicated those morning hours to knocking out some videos, to making some products, to building some ads, to writing some copy? Check your email, one of the last things, because you know what's waiting in your email box are a ton of little different distractions. And next thing you know, you jump into some of this email stuff and then hours and hours pass and you wonder where the day went. Well, the day went because you allowed other people to steal your attention. So you don't want to do that. You want to be more deliberate. And if you must check email, then find 1 or 2 times of the day when email is best for you. So maybe you want to check email at 11 a.m. and then again at maybe 3 or 4 p.m. You don't want to check email the very first thing you do or the very last thing that you do because, well, if you check email first thing in the morning, it's going to kill your productivity. Your day will be controlled by what other people send to you via email. And then if you check email last thing in the day, then you're going to be rushed and overloaded and you're going to go late in the day and say, oh yeah, I'll handle all these things first thing tomorrow, which is exactly what you don't want. Not all emails have to be answered. If you use Gmail, that's a great way of organizing your email better than say something like Outlook or Hotmail. And then you start delegating, you use a help desk, and then you answer emails in batches. I think that'll help you right off the bat to start the day strong. Next thing is this. So first thing, number 1 is quiet the noise. Number 2 point is the minimum viable product. So this is a programming term, which basically means that if you're looking to make the next version of Microsoft Word or word processor, then consider what the minimum viable product is. Because you have 2 choices, right? You could stay practical and make a simple, basic version 1.0 of your Microsoft Word knockoff, put it out there, see how people use it, then put out version 2, version 3. But a lot of people fall into the trap of saying, I'm going to make Microsoft Word version 10. And I'm going to add all these cool features to differentiate myself. But next thing you know, it's a year later and you haven't even put out a workable version of your Microsoft Word knockoff. Or maybe if you want to use the analogy of like Candy Crush, right? Say Candy Crush, say that's a popular game. You say, I'm going to make my own clone of Candy Crush. But again, which makes more sense? To create a basic bare bones version of Candy Crush that works, but is perhaps lacking some features. It's out there, you can test it, people can use it, and even if it gets a mild little bit of a following, then now you have the encouragement and, more importantly, the money to keep going and paying your team and growing the business, and gives you a little bit of a cushion and all that fun stuff. So what's most important is to put out the minimum viable product of anything that you're putting out. And if you're planning a course, well then set a deadline for that and ask yourself, what day in the future, maybe Friday morning, will I have the course completely mapped out? What day or time even further in the future will I begin recording my course, maybe next Monday? And what date will I be completely done creating that course, maybe Friday? And just set a 1 or 2 deadlines to give yourself that sense of urgency and to focus on what's right in front of you, the minimum viable product. And chances are you have some of those projects in place, right? Don't you have a half-finished website or a half-finished report or a half-finished book? Well, let's say you're planning to put out a 200-page book, and you only have 30 pages written. Well, could you look at that 30-page book and maybe set a timer for an hour from now and finish it up at about 35 pages, knowing that you can always go back and put out the second version, but how about you round out or you finish up what you have now, that minimum viable product, get it functioning now and lacking features, as opposed to having an abundance of features and not working. I hope that makes sense. Whatever projects you have going on, then get to the finish line of that minimum viable product. And I'm hoping that when you quiet the noise in the morning, you have time to do that. So number 1, quiet the noise. Number 2, minimum viable product. Number 3, body health. And this is where it always comes back to, if you find yourself just tired or stressed out or having the mood swings or just can't really get going, or it feels like you're just slogging through mud to get the smallest thing done. And a lot of people, especially if you're past middle age, getting up in the years, a lot of people just haven't realized that their health is on a slow decline. Maybe if you don't exercise as much or you don't get out of the house as much, next thing you know, it really catches up to you. If you don't get out there, you don't get the blood pumping, if you don't drink enough water, all that stuff, then what's going to happen is you'll just find it's tougher to think, it's tougher to get the body moving around. But if you just do a little bit of a walking around the block, and again, I don't know what your age is, what your health situation is, but if you can just walk around the block once a day, twice a day, especially if you don't do it right now, just that little action, just that little repeat action, that new habit is going to help you so much. So exercise, wake up early, drink water, and get a good night's sleep. And whatever exercise means for you is great. I know that me personally, I used to go to the gym all the time. I didn't want to commit to a monthly sort of payment, because I knew that as soon as I started paying the gym monthly, I would stop going, and I would just go there and I would buy what's called a day pass. So it's $10, and I had to fill out the whole goofy form every day, or every other day, I should say, but it really helped me to keep on doing it. And I knew that as soon as I joined the monthly thing, I would stop going. So every day I got a day pass. It turns out a day pass is good for 2 days at a gym. So $10 a day for 2 days. And I would go every day saying, okay, I paid my $10, and I'll go and I'll exercise. I'll do some running. I'll do some weights. I'll do some elliptical stuff. And because I have that free second bonus day, if I don't come back the next day, I'm wasting half of my $10. So that was a way for me to keep going over and over. And you never believe what happened. After I kept going using the day pass at the gym, I switched over to the monthly plan, and then I didn't take it seriously. I told myself, well, now I'm paying monthly, so at least if I go a handful of times a month, it's worthwhile. But guess what happened? I went less and less and less. And the next thing I know, I was trying to cancel my gym membership, and they were like, well, because of the cutoff date for this is on the 5th, and we bill 2 months ahead of time, I ended up being on the hook for a few $100s, even though I thought I was paying like $15 a month. But they get you on that contract. And the big reason why I quit the gym anyway, because I was running and walking outdoors as it was. So there you go. So just get yourself out there. Don't overcomplicate it. Don't overthink it. You don't have to join a gym or join a class, just some moving outside. If walking's all that you can handle, then great. Then move up to longer walks, then move up to runs. But there's just something about in the morning, as the sun's still coming up, walking around, there's no one else around there to bother you. And the longer you walk, the better you'll feel. And then after about the 20-30 minute mark, especially after the hour mark, I don't know how much time you have carved out for this, but if you can walk for over an hour without phone, without music, with just like being in nature and being calm, you'll end up really thinking about new things and making new connections and thinking bigger and thinking further. And I think it's going to help you, especially if you find yourself spinning your wheels, putting out fires, always kind of caught in the same place. Just resetting and going for a long walk and unplugging and unwinding, letting your mind relax, feeling a little better. You might have heard all these things before, but it really helps. So number 1, quiet the noise. Number 2, go for it, the minimum viable product. Number 3, keep your body healthy. And number 4, shoot for better relationships. So relationships, some people think it only means like marriage or dating, but everyone you deal with has some sort of a relationship with you. So the way that you deal with your family and your spouse and your kids and your team and your if you have a divorced partner or parents or other family members or friends, these are all relationships you have with other people. And you have different relationships with all these people, and maybe some information you share is different from information you share with others. And maybe it's that someone who's extra close to you can share a lot of personal private details or doubt or uncertainty in your business. And if some, say, family member is overly critical or using every opportunity to make fun of you or be sarcastic, then maybe that's the type of person that you don't share as much personal details or you don't share as much about the business because they aren't helping you. And what actually helped me quite a bit was there's some kind of psychologist or some kind of relationship expert that talked about the 4 horsemen of relationships. You ready for this? This is from a relationship expert, John Gottman. And he says it comes down to contempt, criticism, defensiveness, stonewalling. And he uses in the context of like if your marriage is falling apart, but I've noticed that I tend to fall into one of these four phases if I'm dealing with like a difficult customer or a client or a joint venture partnership. And here's what this means: contempt, criticism, defensiveness, stonewalling. It is really easy to, first of all, fall into the pattern of contempt. And if there's someone in your life or someone who's bringing you down, again, in whatever context, if it's a spouse or an employee or a team member or a customer, whatever, contempt is the first thing to fall into, which is like, well, I'm so much better than them. And if you find yourself, trying, always cleaning up after a person, or if you're dealing with a customer or something, having to maybe explain something, and maybe they didn't bother to learn the directions, or maybe they're not as familiar with a piece of software as you. So ask yourself, am I feeling contempt for someone? Am I feeling like they're way beneath me because I'm having to do a lot of the extra work for them? Well, if so, then notice that that's the pattern you're falling into. Next is criticism. So first contempt was, well, I'm better than them, I'm being a bigger person. Well, don't get yourself into that sort of martyr victim headspace. But then criticism. Criticism means that, well, you're picking on one thing. So maybe is there some customer like they're always asking for some new password, or maybe do you have someone in your life who's always asking you for money, or there's one thing that you're picking on about the person that you don't like. Well, would you like that to be done to you? Would you like it if someone picked on the way that you talk, the way that you stand, the way that you speak? Well, you wouldn't like it. So don't do it to other people. Do your best to not criticize. And even if you're not verbally criticizing them, be wary of the passive aggressive trap, right? Of you think a certain way about someone and you just despise this person. They don't know, you don't tell them, but also you're not really resolving it in yourself. So what the heck are you doing? You're just having this imaginary fight with this sort of being in your head. So contempt and criticism aren't bad. And then that also leads to defensiveness, right? Because now if someone turns things around on you, and if there's something that you're doing that they don't like, well, then now you're being defensive. Now you're keeping score. Now you're saying, well, you're telling me what not to do, but then you don't do this thing that I'm telling you not to do. So now you're being defensive. And then stonewalling, which is finally, if people keep bringing in up the stuff that you don't like, you just shut them down. You shut them down, you move things on, and this is where things get really dangerous, because now no one's really talking, now no one's really fixing things. So if you find that some of these relationships you have are falling apart, again, relationship can mean many, many different things. Ask yourself, are you putting that person that you're relating to or trying to relate to in the box of contempt, criticism, defensiveness, or stonewalling? Well, if so, this is a toxic habit, and you need a better way of thinking. You need to identify what you're doing and stop doing it. So, number 1, quiet the noise. Number 2, minimum viable product. Number 3, body health. Number 4, better relationships, which is the contempt, criticism, defensiveness, stonewalling. That's expert John Gottman. And number 5, be present. And this gets a bad rap as, oh, if I'm being present, I'm like in the moment and I've got all my clocks turned off, and I'm just meditating and I'm being super positive. But here's what being present means to me. It means that when I was in college and I was mixing like a jug of frozen juice, like you go to the grocery store, you buy like a little cylinder of juice, you put it in a container, you add some water, you stir it up. Well, it used to be that if I had filled it up and it's like, oh, fill in 4 cupfuls of water, I'd like put in the frozen thing, I'd pour in 2 things of water and be like, wait, was I on 2? Was I on 3? And I couldn't even count to 4 over the span of a couple of minutes, because I'd have all these thoughts. I'd have all, my phone be going off. I'd be distracted by something else. And if you can relate to that, well, it's time to be present. Being present means you avoid multitasking. And we all think we can do it, except for we can't, because the switching back and forth to those tasks is the real killer. So we think we've got 5 things going on, right? But then you check on task 1, task 2, task 3, and you have to get resettled, back in the zone, back in the groove. And you thought you were doing more, but you were playing tricks on yourself. So avoid multitasking. Do everything you can to avoid distractions. And again, this is why working or playing with your business early in the day is great, because it avoids the crying babies, any of that sort of stuff. avoid multitasking, avoid distractions. And this means have a nice quiet place for you to build your internet business. Have a separate office with a door that closes and where you don't have to always be distracted by little things. Some people that we know like to get an office nearby, as long as the office isn't sort of a prison that you go to or the man cave, right? We don't want to have an office where it's now a new burden on you, where now you have to wake up in the morning and get dressed and get in your car and drive there. So hopefully this office thing, if it's what you want to do or you are doing, it's a nice quiet place to get things done. And avoid the trap of waiting for one thing to do another thing. So some people say, I need to make a website, but I need to wait until my business entity comes through or my business cards come through. I can't make a website. Do whatever you can to get to that finish line. This is why it helps to think in smaller terms and smaller projects. So you're saying, let me finish the book I have out now, or I'm going to run a webinar. Let me get the PowerPoint slides done now. But don't wait for one thing in order to do the other thing. Figure out a way to make it work. So if that means that you're still waiting on the logo for your website, well, can you launch your product without a logo? Could you put up a sales page, a membership site, a product download, and then when the logo comes in, just log in real quick and slap it on there? Don't fall into the trap of waiting for X to do Y or just sticking something out. If you're not happy or you're not energized or you're just kind of forcing yourself to go through the motions in your business, don't stick it out because eventually it's going to catch up to you. So number 1, quiet the noise. Number 2, minimum viable product. Number 3, body health. Number 4, better relationships. Number 5, be present. Number 6, write things down. When I have something I really need to get done, I write it down. Why do I do that? Because if it's written down, there's way, way more of a chance to get it done than it not being written down. And every time I come across someone who says, oh yeah, I'll remember that, then next thing I know, they don't remember it. So even if you know what 4 things you want to do today, even if you say, I got it in my head, I know it, write it down. That way, at the end of the day or the end of the week, you can go back and say, did I actually do the things that I wrote down? And you'll be surprised at how silly and simple of a thing this is. But I'm telling you, there have been so many days when I started the day and I said, here are the things I'm going to do, these 4 tasks, I write them down. I go and I get distracted and I do all these other tasks and I pat myself on the back and I say, geez, I got a heck of a lot of cool stuff done today. But then I go and compare it back to the list I made earlier that day. And it turns out that I only did one of the things I set out to do. The other things seemed important at the time because those were recent distractions, but they weren't as important as the things that were actually making me money. So write down the things that you want to do that day. And this also helps you to do a little bit of a journal. So if you're in research mode, and I've definitely been in research mode if I've tried to figure out a new platform, or if I was running some ads or checking some traffic or split testing. And if you're taking notes on something and you're not really sure how things fit in together, then create a journal. And it's just this simple. You go to google.com/drive, you create a new blank document, and then every day you just write that date, today's date, and then you just add a couple of sentences on what you did that day, or more importantly, what nut are you trying to crack? So maybe you went and set up some ads and you said, I'll set up some Facebook ads today, and you just made a list of what ads you set up and what things you learned. And if on that day you say, well, I got 50 opt-ins, if I got 5 sales, just every day, just write a couple of sentences on what you did that day and on what progress. And you don't want to get too crazy with this. You don't want to add screenshots and links and make it all pretty. Just add today's date and type in a few things that happened today. And then when you go back and you see your journey, now you're going to know that you were on task, and you were going to know that at any given point in time, you were looking to solve a specific problem, an objective, as opposed to just wasting time. So number 6, write things down. Number 7, negative self-talk. So many times we fall into this problem of negative self-talk, of saying, there's no point in going to a live event because it'll never work, or why am I even bothering with this website? There's no point. The self-doubt creeps in, and The term for this nagging voice in your head that's always distracting you is called negative self-talk. And the fix for negative self-talk is if you find yourself always going back to those same discouraging, negative, nasty things, then assign that nasty thing into a better question about your situation. Think of it as a redirect. Ask better questions about your situation, such as, well, what's good about this? Or there's this bad thing that happened in the past, but what action will I take moving forward? Or if I'm hesitating to take some action, like maybe if you say, I really want to have a great quarter for my business right now, but I'm concerned about expenses or taxes or things like that. Well, if you're worried about something specific like that, then ask yourself, is that thing you're worried about, is that true in all circumstances? Has that been true in all circumstances in the past? And if not, then find the way that that's true. Or if you say, I'm worried about this added tax burden, well, then set a reminder in your calendar for a couple of months from now, for later in the year, to talk to your CPA, talk to your accountant, talk to a financial advisor. That way, that little bit of stress, that somewhat perhaps irrational fear you had, can play into things later, but when the timing is right. This way, you're not psyching yourself out before you get started. This way, you're not worrying about a problem you'll have months from now today. You'll deal with it at the appropriate time. Number 7, negative self-talk. Next, number 8, be independent. Remember this, you're in control of everything that you're doing. Today, the day can be spent the way that you choose it. And if you say, that's not true, I have a job, I have obligations, I have a business. Well, you can choose to quit that job if you really hate it. You could choose to put in your notice or start a new business. So you're in control. And if you feel like maybe you've lost some control in recent years, maybe that's because you've allowed yourself to do that. You've given up some of the power. You've allowed yourself to get into whatever situation that you're in. And it's up to you to decide, I'm happy here or I'm not happy here. And even if bad luck or if other people or anything like that get you down, you're still in control, because let's say that you're in a bad relationship or a bad marriage or something like that. You can always leave that, right? If you're in a business that you're unhappy with, you can always sell the business. But the worst thing you can do is to have the pity party and feel bad to yourself and say, everything happens to me, there's no point in me doing anything. That's a very unhealthy thing that you can do. There's always an action for you to take. And no matter what age you're in or what's happened to you so far, you don't know how much time is left. That's why what the future is all about. So you're in control. And even if there are people around you in your life that are doing things to you or not giving you what you want, just remember that you put yourself in that situation, and it is a conscious decision that you're making to stay in that situation or to leave. It's up to you. And speaking of things like that, so that was number 8, be independent. Number 9, be positive. Why did you get started with your business in the first place? And what used to get you excited? And if you tell yourself that you're always down on things, and that means that you're just being realistic, or you're the kind of person where now you have all this experience and it's got to count for something, and you're just looking at the situation realistically, I would do yourself a favor and do your best to be more positive, because there's enough negativity in the world. And why not see the upside? Why not say, all right, I'm doing this project and maybe I was expecting it to fail, but maybe you look at that and through the lens of, I'm looking up the worst case scenario real quick, and I'll put things in place so that if the worst happens, I have these things that I've thought about ahead of time. But a lot of people just get caught in the cycle of negativity, and they tell themselves that it's because they're more seasoned, they're more wary, they're looking out for the possible downside. And if you're being negative, then it's time to end that negativity with something positive. So if you're worried about something, then what action have you put in place to make it better? And if the negativity is just useless, if it's gossip, well then what if you just spent a couple of days not gossiping? What if you spent a couple of days not spreading the rumors or just not saying anything bad and only have positive things to say about people? And if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it at all. Number 9, be positive. Number 10, triggers, states, habits, responses. So think about what triggers, states, habits, and responses you have. And here's what I mean. First of all, does something always get you ticked off? Again, is there that one nasty customer, or is there that one person in your life that you just can't stand, and just them talking to you or them emailing you or them being around you gets you in a bad mood? Well, that's a starting point. That's a good place. You can decide to yourself, okay, well, if this person and this situation puts me in a bad mood, then you can choose to either not be in that situation, not talk to that person, see that person in a new light, or choose to react differently if you deal with that person in that situation. So think about your various triggers. If you're unhappy, if you're angry, if you're discouraged, where are you and what are you doing and what happens when that occurs? If you find yourself excited, like if you get to the computer at a certain day and time, or there's a certain task you're focusing on, what gets you excited? So what comes to mind for this is, I'll be honest, I'll come to the computer and I won't be too excited, but I'll record a webinar or a video or a podcast episode like this one, and it'll get me right back into that excited state. So instead of thinking in terms of being happy or sad, what if you thought in terms of more kind of thought through states? So what if you were in a state of productivity? What would that look like, and what other emotions and what feelings and what mental talk comes with that, with being excited? Are you itching to get at the computer? Are you excited about getting to the end of a project? Are you getting ready to change some lives? What is that? What states get you happy? And then what habits support those states? So if you're drinking and smoking every night and trying to rolling out of bed, get to the computer, that's not going to work, right? That's not going to work long term. But if you give yourself a good night's sleep, if you have your book open to the last page that you were typing, if you make sure to wake up early and go for a walk with nature, or just have the quiet time to yourself, whatever, those are the habits that are going to get you to where you want to go. And with any trigger, you don't have to respond the same predictable way. Who was that in Seinfeld? George Costanza had the episode where he said, all right, this time, I'm going to react to everything the opposite way I normally would. So if everyone around you is expecting to be able to set you off and control you like they're the puppet master, or they think that certain things, if you hear them, they're going to get you angry, or other things you hear them, if they're going to get you happy, what if you responded differently than the way that you normally would? Do you have someone in your life who's just afraid of walking on eggshells and afraid of telling you the bad news? What if this week, you responded differently to that? Number 10, triggers, states, habits, responses. Number 11, develop your entrepreneurial skill. So I think the number one skill that any entrepreneur needs to have is the ability to solve problems and to distill whatever information's out there, distill that down quick enough to take action without being arrogant, with paying attention, and with just the right amount of listening to advice, then being able to take the steps to implement that advice. And then if you didn't get the result you wanted, don't give up, but compare your actions with the advice to see if that matched up. And many people will study, but then not take any action. Some people will sort of study, but not really pay attention, take the wrong action, and then wonder why things didn't work. So you need to have both sides of the coin. You need to be the kind of person that pays attention to details, but also doesn't get hung up on the details, because over and over again, you'll see these different customers and people like that who are angry, and they'll say things like, well, there's no point in learning this internet marketing stuff because every couple of months, everything changes. Well, it's up to you to learn it quickly, implement it quickly, and then once the information changes, now you can look at what you implemented and say, how does this relate to me? What things do I need to change? But so many people, they'll learn stuff, and then the game will change, and they'll say, well, there's no point in learning it again because I didn't set anything up. Well, break out of that habit, set something up quick and small, and then you can adjust what you set up, and you don't have to learn and study over and over again from scratch. I've seen a lot of people, especially recently, they for some reason have some sort of idea that those of us that came before them had it easy, had free access to everything, and that the internet years ago was for some reason super easy. It wasn't super easy. It was less competitive, but there were also less tools. And so the game just changes, and you can't make these assumptions and assume that Everyone else had it easier than you. You can't assume that everyone else learned it once and didn't have to learn it over and over again. Those of us who are the most successful have the ups and downs, have the failures, learn new stuff, because if we don't, then we'll fall behind, and we don't want that. So, and you also can't use whatever's out there to hold you back or confuse you. So if you say that there's new courses coming out all the time, I can't possibly buy them all and learn them all. Well, of course you can't. So you choose one, you buy it, you go through it, you implement it, and if it didn't work, then don't buy from that person again, or don't buy a product like that again, or get a refund if you think that's accurate. But if you buy something and you honestly don't watch it, you don't go through the material, you don't implement it, well, then that is a pattern that you need to break. And I completely understand how it's easy to blame others for the total amount of money that you spent or the total amount of hours that you spent. But if you don't implement and course correct and readjust, then it becomes tougher and tougher to blame others if other people are having success and you're the only person who's still struggling. So maybe a head change is needed. Be an entrepreneur and be the person that can go through something quickly and implement it, and then go back and see if what you implemented was correct or not. And you might have to go through it a couple of times, but get something set up. It's not fair for you to take a course about making a website and then you yourself didn't make a website and you say, it must not work. Well, did you try it? Well, if the answer is no, then who do you blame from there? That part's up to you. So have that entrepreneurial skill of distilling a lot of information down. That way you can use it and then be in the habit of learning and then implement it. Don't just learn and then put it aside, and don't just figure out a way to talk yourself out of implementing. You might say, I bought this course on Facebook, but it's a year old. I'm not even going to bother with it. Why not just set it up now and see what happens? And finally, so that was entrepreneurial skill, tip number 11. And finally, tip number 12, chunking. And so the metaphor for this is when you go and do the laundry. Have you done the laundry before? You pile up your dirty clothes in a laundry basket, take it in the laundry room, put them in the washing machine and all that. You go through a step-by-step process, but you don't just go through that step-by-step process blindly. You say, here's my strategy for washing the towels, washing the colors, washing the white colors, and you do a little bit of thinking, but also a step-by-step process. But the most important part of this laundry basket visualization metaphor is that you wait until the laundry basket is a certain size, right? You don't wait until the laundry basket's overflowing, then you got to do a bunch of stuff. But you also don't do laundry if you have like 2 socks in the laundry basket. You wait until it's almost full or almost overflowing, and then you handle all that laundry at the same time. So you need to adjust the size of your so-called laundry basket to get a better understanding of how much you can bite off and chew. So if you say, today I'm going to do these 4 things, and one of the 4 things will be I'll record 5 videos. Well, if you know that's not within the realm of your possibility, you're setting yourself up for failure, and you're setting yourself up to keep on starting some tasks but not finishing them. So what you need to do instead is, if you're going to be doing 4 things today, I recommend that. Our group for that is 4dailytasks.com/group. I recommend you know what you can accomplish in one day, and most importantly, in just a couple of hours. Because let's face it, today and every day, you're only going to be putting in a couple of focused hours in your business. So the way I see it is you can either choose to put in a couple of focused hours and a ton of wasted time padded throughout the day, or just cut out the middleman and just do those focused hours and just don't even be at the computer the rest of the day. What's the point of living life if the whole life is set at your computer? So chunk and adjust the size of your laundry basket so that you know how productive you can be and how focused you can be in a 40-minute period. So you might say, well, instead of committing to 5 videos, which I know I won't do, what if I just recorded a 20-minute Facebook live stream? And then for task number 2, I emailed my list and sent them over to that Facebook live stream. Maybe for task number 3, I'll schedule tomorrow's email promoting an offer. And then maybe on the final task for today, then maybe I'll set up a quick Facebook ad to send traffic to my website. So there you go. Those are 4 reasonable things you could do. And I would rather that you set your sights slightly lower on your 4 things. Say you'll do maybe 4 simple things today. You get all 4 of those knocked out, and then you ramp up. And then if you find yourself biting off more than you can chew, then scale back down and only commit to the things that you more or less know that you'll finish. And it's okay if you have some days where you commit to 4 things, only get 2 or 3 of those things done, but that's a way better stab at it. That's a way better estimation than saying, here's my big long to-do list. You don't get anything done, or even worse, you get the least most important thing on that list done. But it was something like registering a domain name or checking emails or printing business cards because that was easy and it was fun, but it wasn't really getting you to the making money part. So what I want you to do is be focused, be motivated, and consider these 12 mind hacks to becoming a better author, speaker, coach, and your best self. Number 1, quiet the noise. Number 2, go for the minimum viable product. Number 3, body health. Number 4, better relationships. Number 5, be present. Number 6, write things down. Number 7, negative self-talk. Number 8, be independent. Number 9, be positive. Number 10, triggers, states, habits, and responses. Number 11, entrepreneurial skill. And number 12, chunking. So get a better handle on yourself. And if you say, I need to go and retweet these 20 tweets, or I need to go and email these 10 people, why not batch or chunk up those activities? That way you can get the best bang for your buck. That way you can be focused and motivated. And the more times that you set a goal, you accomplish it, you set a goal, you accomplish it, the more times you do that, you pick up those good habits, the easier it'll be for you to ramp up, to be the most productive, to get the most things done. And you'll realize that now you're focusing less on the things that didn't matter like Instagram or Facebook, and focus more on those money, those revenue generating activities. So I hope that helps to get your focus and motivation back, or to get it in the first place if you never had it. So those might have been things that you've heard, but they all work. So go ahead and do them. And if you found this episode useful, go to robertplank.com/ask. Let us know how we're doing, and subscribe to us at robertplank.com/iTunes. We'll see you in there. Thanks and bye now. This is Robert Plank, and I'm guessing that you're working too hard in your business. Plus, you aren't getting the traffic, leads, and exposure you'd like. Do you want to change all that? If so, check out Interview Valet. They're a podcast guest booking service that will get you on podcasts that are the right fit for you. Check out interviewvalet.com/Robert to discover how you too can avoid the hassle of doing it all yourself and enjoy the benefits of podcast